I would like to welcome everyone to this part of the session, doing a PhD and PostDoc in Germany. My name is Choma Okonkwo, and I am from Hamburg, studying here in Hamburg at the Technical University of Hamburg. And we have three great speakers. They're all in one way related to our topic. And in fact, they have like the bulk of knowledge. And I look forward to a really exciting event and talk. So the first speaker I would like to welcome is Dr. Eseola Abiodun. So Dr. Eseola Abiodun is a postdoctoral fellow at the Friedrich Schiller University in Jena. Hi, Dr. Hi, Dr. Eseola.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for inviting me.
Okay, I would want you to briefly introduce yourself, but I mean, let me just call out the our other two guests, and then we could start from the introduction. So the second guest speaker here is Dr. Kenechukwu Okamike. So Dr. Kenny, for short, is currently a research scientist at Procter & Gamble. So he has a double PhD degree in chemistry, I think organic chemistry and polymer chemistry, if I read correctly from your profile, from KIT, Karlsruhe University of Technology, and University of Bordeaux in France. Hi, Dr. Kenny. I think you're mute. Can you?
So yeah, is it okay now?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's nice to be on the panel today. Thank you for having me.
Okay, and our last is our most honorable researcher. So Christian Weze is actually here in Hamburg, and he's a research associate and PhD student at the University of Hamburg. He's also a lecturer at the University, Nnamdi Azikiwe University in Nigeria. So hi, Christian, I can't see you.
I'm here, but I can see you, yeah.
Hi, Christian. Oh, nice to meet you. Nice to have you on board.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and I look forward to a really nice event.
You're welcome.
So, Dr. Eseola, I would want you to just briefly tell us about yourself, and then, how far you've gone, and just a brief introduction. Thank you.
Thank you. I would just try and be fast.
Okay, we have 2 hours, so we have all day.
I'm into chemistry myself. I am lecturer at Rivers University in Nigeria.
Oh, was it?
And then I started my postdoc in 2015. I actually concluded it in 2018. So at the moment, I'm kind of research associate more or less in the institute here. And yeah. My area is chemistry, and of course, part of the things we're about to discuss, or which from information I've been getting online from what is going on, is sometimes it also has to do with what next after postdoc, what next after PhD. And those are part of the areas where I'm also keeping my antenna open. I want to hear.
Yeah. Oh, all right. Nice to hear from you. And I don't know, I think chemistry is the latest, research. Everybody's a chemist, a chemist. In fact, natural scientists, natural sciences, like they're like the booming industry. And we engineers were like, okay, do we switch?
No, don't do that. The country is looking for you more. That's the truth. Yeah.
Oh, so nice to hear from me. So, Dr. Kenny, I want you to briefly say something about yourself. And yeah.
Am I clear enough?
I think the volume is a bit low.
The volume is not really loud. No.
I think I do away without this. How about?
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. So I can start from the beginning. So I'm Nigerian. I've done my first degree in industrial chemistry from Futo in Owerri in Nigeria. I moved first to Germany. I came to Europe for the Erasmus Mundus master's program. So I did the first part in Germany, Augsburg. Then I moved to France for the next 1 year in University of Bordeaux. Then I joined after that in 2016 the Marie Curie double PhD program. So I was at two universities, switching between Bordeaux and KIT in Germany. I finished my PhD in February 2019, and I joined P&G Germany as a research scientist in July 2019. So my research interest is on developing sustainable ways of making materials from renewable resources. So I'm kind of a sustainable chemist in that regard.
Yeah, thank you so much. We look forward to getting some knowledge, valuable knowledge from you too. And Christian, a researcher in Hamburg. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I hope I have to say a little bit. I'm a lecturer from Diaspora University. In fact, I've been a lecturer for the past 10 years. And my research activity moved me around the world, first from Nigeria to UK, to New Zealand, to Australia, and back to Germany. And there is one thing I really want to say. Each of my applications to study, I always write them from Nigeria. So I'm always invited direct from Nigeria to come. So I came from Nigeria to Germany to come and do PhD. I'm doing a combined PhD of material physics and optics. So I work in the Dutch electron synchrotron. And at the moment, I was associated to the University of Hamburg, where I got a recent contract to work with the University of Hamburg, do some teachings, and at the same time, that's all I could say for now. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. I mean, you have time to really elaborate to us all about your experiences and how you went and how we could actually learn from it. So first of all, I'll start with Dr. Kenny. So I would like to ask a question. Because I noticed, I mean, you've getting a master's and PhD was, I think, like the DAD scholarship and all, it was quite easy. So I would like to say, for people that want to do a PhD in Germany, what do you think, like, how do you prepare for it? How do you put yourself in a position to get a PhD in Germany, especially from Nigeria?
I would say that that question fits very well for Christian because
Everybody, yeah.
sincerely, I have a lot of respect just for people that are able to move from Nigeria into Germany to do a PhD. I wasn't that fortunate, to be sincere. So I moved into PhD in Germany from already when I was in Europe. And I think it's a bit more easier, if you want to use that word. The reason is because from my experience doing PhD in Germany, I noticed that many of the groups always want to keep the students from their masters for PhD. So it means that the chances of you coming as an external to get a PhD position is even low. So only few groups would say that they want to keep some quota for accommodating external students from even other universities. So I would say, yeah, maybe Christian can really explain, align himself, to be able to be invited actually to come and do a PhD.
So Christian, you have the floor.
Well, I hope I wouldn't discourage anybody in any case. But my CV alone could put me in any university I want to be. First, I had masters in Nigeria. I first started as an undergraduate in NiSIG. I had masters in Nigeria in NiSIG. I had a second master's in UK in University of Manchester. I was a visiting scientist in University of Christchurch in New Zealand. I was at Adelaide University in Australia. So what it simply means is that when I send you my CV that I want to come to you, the first you have to look at, where have I been to? What have I done? And at the same time, before I came here, I had about 7 publications. So when I send you my CV, first I send CV to 3 professors. But the good thing I have to tell you is that it's a very competitive environment. All you need to do is, I am as a Christian. You know me, you want to work with me. Go to my line, check everything about me, check the type of research I do, check the publication I made recently. Did you understand the paper? If answer is yes, you have a position with a professor. Just write a letter, I want to do PhD under you, and my interest is on this recent publication. You argued this and that. That caught my interest, and therefore I would like to join the research group. Fortunately or unfortunately, I had about 4 or 5 people asking me, okay, do you want to come to do interview here or in Germany or so, but the one I chose told me, don't worry, there's an opportunity, not just for you to do PhD, but for you to also work with me in the University of Hamburg. So I thought that it's a good opportunity and I chose it.
Okay, so you have a lot on your profile. So for starters, how do they start actually?
Yeah, for starters, that's what I'm trying to say, because first, most of the people, I followed the webinar, though I was not visible. Most of the people that are starting, actually, they are hyper lucky at the moment. The world is going into a kind of you get everything within the hand of your click. If, for instance, you just left university, you have an experience, people want to hear your ideas. Like Kelechi said, the PhD here is reserved for the master's students, because there are good master's students that can transit from master's to PhD. Now you are coming from Africa. The supervisor wants to see something different from you that I would like to call you to come than giving it to somebody who is already here with me. And that thing that is very different in you is actually understanding the recent publication and the writing the professor making reference to this publication. So that will say, oh, this person actually understood what I am doing. So for starters, I think that is the best bet. Look at the recent publication of that professor. Read it, understand it. If you don't understand it, consult someone who understands. Explain this to me. Have this as the only backup you have. PhD is always, the professor wants to hear what you are saying, what interests him. Just like somebody who said something about CV, said, you must speak their language. So speak the professor's language. So that's actually the summary here.
Yeah, thank you so much. So
Thelma, I could add one point to that.
Okay.
Yeah, I think Christian has really covered very much. So for starters, there is another approach that has worked. As actually, I have quite a few mentees that have come through that approach by that, right? So as you know, that funds PhDs, mostly PhDs, few masters from people from developing countries. Now, the main criteria or one of the biggest hindrance to getting a DAD is getting a professor in Germany that would host you, right? And so which just falls again with what Christian was just mentioning. So when you approach these professors, I mean, most times the first challenge they have is that they don't have the funding, right? So if they have funding, it's mostly reserved or most times for people they already know. So they wouldn't want to take the risk of hiring someone all the way from Nigeria. So when you approach the professor, first of all, being aligned, like speaking the professor's language, understanding what he's doing, you need to come with a proposal, right? So you come with a proposal. And in most times, I always tell people that don't be too focused on trying to make the proposal your own, like your own, because eventually, like for the few examples that I have, when they come into Germany to start their PhD, this proposal changes drastically into what the professor really wants to do. But the focus at the beginning is to get the funding, right? To be able to get support to apply for that. So being able to get a professor in Germany, like spend all the time, understand the research area. In fact, I always say, look for what research you are looking for, find professors that are in that research, find what you can contribute into that research, then contact them with a proposal and head on, start by saying, I am applying for that to support the funding. I am looking for a host. You know, I'm interested in your research area and this is what I have. So you approach them already with most of the solutions that they don't have, which is one, the funding. And if a professor can support your application, the probability that you get a DAT is much, much high. So that is one way that you can actually get a PhD funding coming from Nigeria. I think that is a very good pathway.
Okay, thank you so much.
While you continue, I hope we have time when we'll talk about different available funding for the PhDs, all right? We have that time.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Sure. And if you have questions, you can just forward it to the chat and then I would read it out. Yeah, so my next question goes to Dr. Abiodun. This part of speaking the language of the professor, does it also apply to the postdoctoral research? Because I read your profile and you're also on the Humboldt postdoctoral scholarship. So I want to know, how was this possible for you? Because I have a lot of friends and colleagues in Nigeria with already a PhD, and they're looking for how to break this barrier and get into the postdoctoral research. So how did you do it? How did you actually prepare and make it come to pass?
Thank you very much. I will start by, because it's relevant to what this question is. Some of the things that Dr. Kelechi has said, and I didn't capture the name.
Christian.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Dr. Christian.
No, not Doc yet.
Yeah. Okay. A way to summarize what you have said, which is important, because I know many people who are prospecting are listening and are trying to get information. Maybe later it will be put on YouTube and people will also keep on learning from it. Part of the things you have said is that the people must have excellence in their mind. They must be anybody applying for some of these things must be a person that is personally set up internally to break barriers and go for things that are not common. Okay. If anybody is busy with regular things, then the likelihood of having a bouncing application will always be happening. So I can pick that from what both of them have said. You must have the hunger for something unique, something excellent. And then there's one thing I also wanted to chip in, which is a little bit like an addition to what people look out for to pick up somebody from Africa. Okay. We may not really know. It depends on, of course, on where we're talking about. Europe is peculiar. If you're going to a country where they are not speaking English, from my own experience, I had a Twas fellowship in China for 1 year while I was doing PhD in UI. And I landed in the place and got to know that one of the reasons sometimes they pay attention to you is when they are writing their bad English, you must be there to help them look through. So in a nutshell now, in general way of putting the things, anybody going to a place must try to also understand what advantage he has, what he has to offer. You understand? So that's another thing. In this kind of country, you want to also believe that, well, West Germany is quite international. I'm in East Germany. There are some of them that would be very glad that you also look through their manuscript or something. Some of them don't even respond to you because, I got to know that later. I made so many applications, some responded, some didn't, and then I had the opportunity to ask, okay, why was the response delayed and all of that? And somebody felt he didn't want to begin to shoot only to realize his English doesn't have enough bullets. There are people like that also. But then it's not always. Most of the people in academics, their English is not usually a problem. So, nutshell, anyone that is aiming for some of these things, try not to come and show some ignorance or some, what word do they usually use when they say mediocrity?
Yeah, mediocrity.
Inferiority complex.
Yeah, for inferiority is even better. But when somebody is saying, I want to come in and do something, and one of the things that the two speakers have said, which I somehow touched, is that I don't expect any professor picking up a PhD student, picking up a postdoc student, and having to look over his shoulder to see what he's doing. The person who came from Nigeria, it will be easy. That's Dr. Christian. It will be easy for any well-thinking human being to say that this one will do me good if I have him here. Funding is one thing, but sometimes the benefit a person will make by having you around, either you have a perspective from African that is important for them. There must always be something. So I want to then quickly mention a little bit I know about you applying for postdoc or even the PhD, because it's all the same principle that works behind at the end, and getting the attention. One of the things I've seen personally, I get a lot of colleagues also who say, help me, this and that. The first thing I always ask for is, please, can I quickly have a look at your CV? The people that I'm not really so close, not so much in talking terms with, I just need to have the full name. I go on Scopus myself, check Google Scholar. Before I go talking to the professor and saying, okay, this person is. So excellence is one thing, ability to hit the ground running, the research design you are coming to do, you know, all of them on the one side, your person. On the other side, the interest of the professor and how he writes in terms of backing up, because the same principle that appears to function across board, whether you are coming for masters, whether you are coming for PhD, whether you are coming for postdoc, or even just a visiting researcher or something. If they are going to, if a professor from, let's say Germany, from wherever in Europe, will make a letter to DFG, make a letter to Humboldt, make a letter to maybe Maria Curie or whoever, they will do it in a way that we tell whoever is reading whether the person is enthusiastic about it or he just his hand is being twisted and he just have to write, he has to write something. And that's one very important factor that many don't recognize. We have experience of people that will be having some 40 publications, making application, not getting. And so just last week, a contact told me that the husband is somewhere doing PhD, doing postdoc, and she's coming into Yena. So more like getting information, this kind of information that is being packaged here. And I realized that it's not like the papers of this person is so like, wow, I could see 6 on Scopus. But if the professor is enthusiastic about what he wants to do, he will write in a way. You know, it's part of the things I've been told that among them in this system, there are some words that they look for in such acceptance letter. At the end of the day, you may take a letter from Nigerian reader and say, he supported my application. But the person sitting in the Humboldt office is saying, well, it looks like we have 7 places to fund, and this professor is not sounding so very enthusiastic about it. So they give it to the people, because the success of your coming and going is important to the Humboldt, not only your professor here. That you come in there and do something and it works. They look at some of those things and they already sense places where they're likely to be friction, where they're likely to be itches. And I think it's good that most of the people who are applying should always try to bear some of these things in mind. You know, I from my own kind of advice, I would normally not even apply for some things if I estimate myself, you know, at least I must already see myself coming close to the borderline of success for that thing. So many people are interested in the applications, but it's also good to begin early to press towards this excellence, so that when you stand to say anything, when you stand to make an application, then the likelihood that you will wake the interest of the professor up first of all will be there.
Thank you so much, Dr. Isiola. We have some questions from the chat. I'll ask you like 3 in 1 question. So Faith asked, how do we find professors to send applications to? I mean, this is to everybody. And secondly, I want to just chip in something, because Christian also mentioned that you should do research on that professor, pick out what he's working on, and then show interest. But I mean, we're in Germany, and my experience with people in Germany is like they work on facts. Do you have the experience? What have you studied? So if it's not actually in line with the professor you're applying to, so how does this work? How does this actually work? And then secondly is just like being smart enough to get a PhD application. Like for instance, you graduated top of your class. Can that actually pave a way to, you know, getting a PhD in Germany? So this is like a 3-1 to everybody.
Okay, maybe I will start first, because it's still part of the discussion. The first one, when someone said, how do you find a professor? If not that I'm in a presentation, I would have asked the person to go back and do bachelor's again the second time. But because they want to understand how it works, it is my duty to say that you know what you want. You go to the Google, you look for them. There are many universities here. first you probably might ask yourself, okay, do I want to do in physics? Let me start with university, TU, haha. As a matter of fact, we have about 4 or 5 of my colleagues after I left, whom I told this is the way to come to Germany. And I'm happy that they are in Germany at the same time studying. It's still the same mechanism. You mustn't have super paper before you will actually do that. It works. It's not that I said it's working, it worked. 1, identify a professor. 2, you don't send 3, 4, 5 professors to the same set of message. It doesn't work because they have different things in mind.
Yeah.
3, PhD deals with curiosity and imaginative thoughts, but that doesn't mean this is what I propose and this is what I produce at the end. 3, answering your question about having someone who is top of the class. If you're top of the class and you don't have the zeal, the motivation, the professor won't take you. They are looking at you.
Or even the research mind.
They won't take you. Top of your class, in fact, if you want to do a very good research, it's actually curiosity. Paying attention to small details. You might go and get everything top your class everywhere. If you are not innovative, if you are not curious, if you don't have zeal, that, like Dr. Abiodun said, he will know. And that is not what they want. So, because here, PhD, I have to be very fast in adding, PhD in Germany is not a student stuff. It is working. You are doing a job. The first time I started, I was giving 3 master students to supervise them. So if you don't even know it, how do you supervise master student?
Yeah.
So because the professor is paying you, because yeah, you get money for working. Then if you come for scholarship, that was why I said, I want us to separate 2 of them, scholarship and getting funding. Because if you're getting funding, you have to teach, you have to work for the professor. But when we come to that, I have to make them known. So when I tell someone I'm working, someone was like, you're a PhD. I said, I'm not a PhD, I'm working. So I go to work and come back, and they mark you when you are at work. They ask you, what is the grade of the student you supervised? So the point you have to make an account to, and if your supervisor, your student is failing, you PhD, you are failing.
Yeah.
It's not, that's the idea. So I want us, when we come to that, we really go towards that. But for now, looking for the professor, for someone who has a question, you do your own job. You want to come for PhD, you do your own job. Then know what you want. And at this point, probably that's when you can now get in contact with NISIG to see, is this my write-up, like Dr. Abiodun said, going to motivate this professor? 98% of mail received by professors, they don't read it, they don't reply you. You write them, they'll neglect it because they didn't see anything on it. 98%. Yeah. Sometimes they will come and say, Christian, someone wrote me from Nigeria. I looked at the write-up. Is it the same university you went that this person went? A professor asking you. so you have to be very careful. Let me allow Kelechi to chip in at that point.
Yeah. Dr. Kenny, you have anything to add?
So like most times we tend to move what we should do to other people, and this is not always very good. I think I've had a lot of these experiences when some things that are obvious, people want just to hear it from your mouth before they do it. Like if you say, how do you find professors? It's quite broad, and also sincerely, it's not what you would expect from someone that really wants to find a way of doing things. Typically, another way to always look at it is, of course, if you are targeting a university, like one of my friends would say, he would say, Google to show yourself approved, right? If you are targeting a university, or let's say a research area, that could be a starting point. You search for that research area, professors working on sustainable chemistry in Germany. You get a lot of lists, right? You go through this list, you check their profile. In fact, I always do what we call like investigative search. So I see these professors, I go and search them on LinkedIn, on Twitter, see what is their activity, go to their web page, see what research they are doing, check the people that are in their group, see whether they have some openings, because sometimes they even have some openings. I think we will still come to how, because some people are asking whether that is the only way of coming into a PhD. It's not. You could go and some have open positions that you need to apply. So, but you have to start, like the first step is search for general area of research and gradually begin to break down. And when it comes down to sending a professor an email, I think I don't know for many people, but a lot of us started really from this aspect of, I want to do more. I want to get that feeling that I am doing a lot. So I want to send emails to 50 professors to give me that feeling that I'm doing something good or that I am busy. I'm busy. But to be very fair, it's better, which is like less is more. It's better to send one email that makes sense, because to construct an email to a professor is not just top of your mind. You write an email, dear professor, I saw your this, I like your profile, this, I want to become a PhD in your group. It's not. You have to do all this investigation, check the research the professor is doing, try to buy into that research with, like you said, curiosity, with your own endemic problems in Nigeria that you want to solve. But you see his research area as a way in which you can address that problem. So you find a good link. And this is not something that happens in a day. So it makes more sense to spend all the time and send one email. Of course, this is not, it doesn't mean that you would get a positive response, but you have to make sure that you have done your own part perfectly. If the professor had a chance to look at your email, will it stand out? What are your PODs? What's your point of differentiation? Why should he consider or should she consider you? How do you attract? And in fact, it's even easier today. You could, like I said, you could find out about the professor and even contact them on Twitter. So most times we have this mindset that, oh, he's a professor, he wouldn't want to. No, that doesn't make sense. These are human beings. So put it first in your head that they are humans, okay? You can go on Twitter, you can interact with them. And the aspect about building excellence, you have to be conscious today about how you want to be perceived online. You have a LinkedIn account. On Twitter, how are you engaging with people? Because if you were to contact me as a professor, the first thing that I want to check, like Etiola said, just go and check you on Google Scholar. Of course, perhaps you don't have research there, but I could just search you on Google and see what comes out with your name if I have any interest in you. So already start being proactive, write creative content. Creative content doesn't necessarily mean publications, science publications. You could pick up specific topics. Imagine that your interest is environmental science, or let's say sustainable chemistry. You can already start writing essays around sustainable chemistry. That is a publication. Have it on LinkedIn on your profile or as published articles. Anybody coming and searching for your name can be linked to the article. In fact, you can even do like again reverse psychology, where you are approaching a professor, but you look at what he's doing. Say he's interested in a particular field. Why not write an essay in that field? Publish it somewhere, and you can always use this and link him back, so that when they want to approach or when they are looking at you, they can already see that this person is already actively doing something. Like he didn't just dream today and saw me online and felt that I want to do a PhD. So you need to be very careful and start building that profile that you want to be visible with. So
yeah, thank you, Dr. Kenny. A lot of people are asking about work after PhD, but I mean, the way I structured the seminar is that we'll talk about applying to PhD and doing the PhD, and then after graduation, it makes sense that way, so we don't just get things mixed up.
Yeah.
So now let's talk about funding options for PhD students, for Nigerians in Nigeria and also in Germany. How they could actually do a PhD. And someone asked the question that if you got a DAD scholarship for your master's, that he thinks it's impossible to get a PhD DAD scholarship. So I don't know if any of you have like experience with this or know the answer to this question. So can we also do a DAD master's degree and also a DAD PhD, both funded?
I didn't get that question clearly. Are you saying like, can you do a DAD funded master's?
Okay, I'll repeat myself. So somebody, one of the questions is that when after doing a master's funded by DAD, you're being asked to go back to Nigeria and apply for a PhD. So is that actually true, or can you switch from a dad master's funded degree to a PhD dad funded degree while staying in Germany?
I think that has a condition. Like if you check one of the preconditions for that is that you would have not lived in Germany for a period of say over 6 months, right? So it means that if you were funded for masters by that or any masters, let's say you as in Germany currently already living in Germany or studying in Germany, it simply just makes you ineligible for that particular DAT. But you could be funded by that for masters. And one way, like I said initially, for people that are having interest to go into PhD, I always advise them to do their internship, their master thesis, because you have that option of doing the master thesis in a lab or in an industry. So if you have an interest to go into PhD, one of the first way is to be intentional about where you want to do your master thesis. Okay, so try to do your master thesis as much as possible if you're already in Germany. So I'm talking for those, because this question is framed from someone that is already in Germany. So if you're already in Germany, it's advisable to do your master thesis in Germany, in a lab that you hope to do a PhD. Maybe it's already in the same university where you are doing your master's. But again, in Germany, you have that flexibility of doing your master thesis in another place. That's also possible. So the reason is because within 6 months of doing your master's thesis, you get known by the lab, okay? Get known by the professor. It's an opportunity for you to like show yourself. And it's easier, like I said from the beginning, for this professor to say, okay, I have this PhD offer. And also, don't be shy to ask. So don't feel like, okay, I'm still doing a master's. If I go and say I would be interested in a PhD, they might think I'm not serious with my master's. So make sure to let the professor know early on that you would like to continue with a PhD if he has funding for it. If not, also, like, again, this is a matter also of relationship. So keeping a good relationship with your supervisor during your master thesis could also help them to recommend you to their colleagues. And it makes a lot of impact. So a lot of people that I know that have transitioned from master's to PhD in Germany are usually those that are in a group that is possible for them to move into the next PhD. Like in my group, when I was doing my PhD, over 80%, if not 85% of people in the group started from even their bachelor thesis. They did the bachelor thesis in that lab, did their master's, came for the master thesis in that same lab, finished, came back for their PhD in that same lab. So you see, it's easier when you already know the people you want to work with. So that would be one way to easily transition after your master thesis. Even if it was a DAT-funded master's, you could move into a non-DAT-funded PhD. You don't have to go back to Nigeria. Just to be clear.
Okay, I will add one thing to what he said already. In terms of that, I know that they have this kind of an agreement that after your PhD, you are supposed to go back and serve your country. That is why Dad is very interested in the PhD you are going to do. How is it going to influence your country? And if you are really, really, really a good student and you are here doing your master's, honestly speaking, the professor you're working with will offer you PhD. Because I have to be very fast in giving this information, very, very fast. As of March 1, 2020, a new law came in place, allowing us from the third country to assume a nature of visa in terms of if you are a graduate. I came in here with student visa, and funny enough, my status here is no longer student, because they knew about the opening. They will always make you an offer if you really want to be there. So if you are a student coming for DAD, and your intention of coming for DAD is actually to push further your PhD, then it means you should not fall down back to that of DAD sponsoring your PhD, because you are about to go into a full-time work. And this full-time work, your contract, if given, you are going to take 4 hours for PhD and 4 hours for working for the professor. This working for the professor is actually part of your PhD because it might be stay in the lab. If some of the master's or undergraduate students want to come and stay the lab, you allow them to come and stay the lab. I think what we might actually emphasize more here is if we have people in Nigeria that wants to come and do PhD in Germany, what is the best way? How could we give them guide? If we have people here already in Germany, then your future is in your hands. You need to really push. I understand financial situation. I have had talk with some of you. As a matter of fact, I'm surprised that 2 or 3 of my students are doing masters. We meet in the church. They told me how I was gingering them when I was in Nigeria. I am a lecturer. I'm still a lecturer after all in Nada Square University. So I told him, what do you want to do after your master's? You need to make your decision now. If you want to work in industry, you take your master's thesis to industry. If you want to do PhD, you take your master's thesis to a professor in the university and there show the professor what you can do. This is very clear for people that are here. So I don't know if we actually covered what they wanted to hear from us and the kind of experience we here have. But if it's for people in Nigeria that wants to come in, then we could come to a detailed means. But I'll tell you, it is very, very easy to get a PhD position than getting a good job in industry. The reason is this: PhD, academics don't pay good money. Industry pay good money. Now, because industry pay good money, the Oyibos, I have to speak it in this language, the Oyibos want to go to the industry. Then there become a gap in who will remain in academics. Then they said there are some smart people in Africa. Bring them to come and stay in the academics. But if you want to stay there, then you have to be smart, right? So that is actually the basis of this. You need to understand the system, how they structure the system.
Thank you so much for your contribution. So the last round of questions concerning getting a PhD, like the beginning parts, because we're moving from getting a PhD to actually executing it and then to life after PhD. So now I would like, because Christian mentioned, what are the funding options? And I know at some point all our speakers have had for some funding options, because I know Dr. Abiodun has the Humboldt postdoctoral sponsorship. Kenny has got the DAD and the Erasmus scholarship, and then also for the PhD, and then Kristen too. So I want to ask this, so if you can actually tell our participants, or just probably write in the chat, or maybe make a document we could share afterwards about the PhD fundings available for Nigerians in Nigerian scholars, both in Nigeria and also here in Germany.
So is that a direct question?
To everybody, yeah. So what are the funding options? Because Kristen mentioned earlier that we would want to talk about this part of funding options for PhD students, and I want to know how you guys got your funding options, and how we could actually apply it if we want to do a PhD. How do we tap from this huge, funding options when we don't know it? So we want to learn about funding options available for us in terms of doing a PhD.
So I could start. Okay, please, Esiola, please go ahead. You're muted.
Yeah, okay. I just wanted to quickly chip in that we should also try and make a differentiation between the kinds of funding. Some are there that only the professor applies for, it's not your funding. So that's why, sometimes the positions are they're like a job, and you're even probably paying tax on it. And some are scholarship based that you apply for, and you can list it in your CV as I am awarded XYZ. So we need to also chip in that, because many people don't know. Sometimes you approach a professor You are saying I want to apply for that, and it's telling you, don't worry, I have DFG funding or something like that. So we must differentiate between these two. There are those fundings that you are applying for and it's your scholarship. And there are those that the professor, even though you say I'm funded by that or I'm funded by DFG, the award is to the professor, not to us. So I just wanted us to make that clarification. Dr. Kelechi.
Yeah, that's a very good differentiation. So if you look at professors in Germany, typically, especially in natural science, it's a bit different. They do what I think Shola might also compliment on that. They have what they call 50% contract, okay? 50% contract and 100 or 80% when you're a postdoc. So basically, a professor has money from the university. Depending on their rank, because these professors are also ranked, especially with experience and expertise, they get money to hire like 3 full, or they get what they call 3 full placement, or 2 full placement for PhDs. And what they do is they prefer to split it into 2, especially for natural sciences, and give you what is called a 50% contract. Now, in this kind of scenario, the funding is coming from your professor. So your professor is paying the stipend to you, and you get these 4 hours plus that you have to do something for the professor because it's actually a job on its own. But your PhD itself is part of that job, right? Because now you come into a project, your professor might tell you directly that my research interest is developing of sustainable materials, and we want to work on catalysis. So this is the catalyst we are going to be investigating. This is your PhD thesis. So you simply come into a PhD thesis, okay? So that funding endemic to the professor. Now, some professors have funding from industries. So you have some industries that want to do research, and they collaborate with professors and they give them money. This is a lot, something you see in France. I have noticed more than in Germany. But these big industries give them a lot of money, and they have to do specific research. That's another example where even if you are with the professor, we say, okay, I have this funding from this company. They want to research on biosurfactants. Are you interested in this project? So the company is paying you. And for this kind of research, you need to be aware because you do not have that flexibility to talk a lot about your work, right? Most of it is covered by patents, and so the publication and all is a bit more restricted. Then you have the scholarship as another option. Now, with scholarship, like in my case, I had a scholarship. So I had a scholarship from the European Union under the Marie Curie funding. And what that meant is that they had like a collaboration, like a consortium that had funding with collaborations to professors in the university, but they don't own the money. So the money is given to the student. I mean, they didn't give the money to me to keep in my account, but it's given to you as a student. And in collaboration now with your professor means you are paid from that funding. And this is a bit different because you do not have, on one hand, of course, in a specific case, you could be working on a project that is submitted as a proposal to get that funding, right? So you are also tied to that project. You could also have the other scenario like that as an example, where you come with a proposal. When that gives you a funding, they give the funding to you. Of course, not to you directly, like to your account, but to a professor on your behalf. And in that case, you come with a proposal, and the proposal is going to be what is going to define your research. Of course, there might be some changes, but that is the baseline. It means that there was no existing project on which that funding was given. So we need to understand all those differences. And it could also mean a lot of difference because if you have a fellowship, the time is very important. My funding was for 3 years, meaning after 3 years, I do not get any 1 kobo from my fellowship. If I needed to stay longer because I couldn't complete my PhD within that 3 years, I would now need to depend on the professor to pay. Of course, the pay is completely different, but that would be the only way I can complete my research. But if they cannot pay, then you are not able to complete. So you also need to understand the funding because that would also define, I see some people ask how long can your PhD be? That would also define how long you are able to comfortably do your PhD without having to do something more. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Somebody asked again, must I have a publication as a master's student to apply for a PhD? So, Kristen, can you tell us a bit about this? Because
yeah,
I mean, when I did my master's, I just had one publication. That was my my bachelor, just that, my bachelor thesis. And I don't know if I now have a master thesis publication, that's like 2. Is it like enough for a PhD, or you just have to keep publishing something?
Okay, like I first said, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, people should not be afraid of my publication. One, as a lecturer, for me to be promoted, when I said I started my lecturing job in 2010, which means in 2020, I marked my 10 years as a lecturer in another school in university. So I need a publication for my promotion. So that was why I able to transfer things into publication. But publication might be good, but it is not entirely the reason why a professor will hire you. If you know here, it's always hire. I want to hire you. It means it's a job. So they want to hire you to do this job. And if I've answered the question, it is not a necessary compulsory that you should have a publication before you are hired. But publication will push you higher than someone who doesn't have a publication. That's one. 2, I wanted to make a little point. on the idea of funding. I just wanted to make 1 or 2 points there. The most important difficulty of PhD is finding a professor. Once the professor agrees, the second question is, how do you want to fund your PhD? And coming to these 2 things, and that was why I said, like somebody, I don't know him, but he's a member of NISIG, about 2 months ago called me to tell me that he lives far away. He wants to come and work in my institute. Do I have professors with funding? So I understand he understood how to look for them now. Not PhD now that he wants, but he wants to do PhD, but he needs a professor with funding. So if a professor is interested in you, having made your submission, now the question of funding comes in. There are options in funding. I could tell you authoritatively that PTDF don't find PhDs, professor, for the students. PTDF, we give you the funding and ask you to go and find professors. But the problem is finding the professor. And you cannot get PhD admission without a professor. Okay, you can't get PhD. Can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay,
Yes,
you can't get PhD without a professor. Now, if you come to this PhD now, there are...
I love you, Daddy.
I think you have to mute everyone, Choma, that is not speaking. Ask them to mute themselves.
Let me fuck you. Let me ask Daddy.
You have to mute everyone that is not to speak.
No, now mute, do automatic muting of everybody. Do automatic, I supposed to be, no, because I'm not muted. When you move, then you can, because you are the one controlling, then you can now release people that are talking.
Yeah, I can actually mute, but it's not a webinar that somebody cannot unmute. So if I mute you, you can actually unmute.
Okay. So, okay, so we are always Nigerians in any case.
Okay, I think we could continue.
Yeah, once the professor now is willing, you now talk about the funding. The funding could come in terms of scholarship. You don't have to pay tax on it. You are given a specific amount of money that will be over something. The funding might come in terms of job, where you have to pay a certain amount of that scholarship. In fact, my experience and my observation is funding in terms of scholarship and funding like a work, there is nothing different in two of them. Because if you are earning 50% and it's around 2,000 and you take out tax and everything, you come down to around 1,004. Then if you're on scholarship, you are giving directly 1,004. But the only advantage is as funding or being paid, you are now recognized as, you don't have student visa. Let me just put it in that aspect. Because you are started paying to tax. So some of the condition that, oh, you want to stay so amount of time in Germany and having contributed so amount of money to the insurance and things like that. So you have started counting on that situation. So having said that, these are the possibilities. So if one want to actually say something about the funding, I would ask, first, get a confirmation from a professor that he is gonna supervise you. To be honest, there are many funding available for Nigerians, even at home, provided they were able to secure a professor. Yeah.
So thank you for that. And then moving over to, somebody asked, would you advise me to move from Germany to another country to do a PhD? If probably it didn't work in Germany. And then secondly, I realized that most times after doing a master's degree and you don't get a job, some people take the PhD route, not because they want to, but because they have no other option. So what do you advise to these sets of people? Dr. Abiodun, could you kindly, oh, one moment. Oh, I'm trying to unmute you. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, please, the question again.
Okay, so some people take the PhD route. Some people take the PhD route because not necessarily the PhD and maybe postdoc route, not necessarily because they want to, but because they are searching for a job and they could not get one. So they're like, okay, why not do a PhD while we are still searching? So and then you also mentioned that there has to be some sort of motivation to actually carry out a PhD. Or a postdoc. So what advice do you have for these people?
Well, the first thing I actually would like to chip in is something one of the speakers has mentioned. Like if you are aiming for industry, be focused and be careful. If you know you love to be in academics, also treat yourself appropriately. It's a common saying. I hear it. I don't know. I mean, it could be discussed that PhD demarcates a person in Germany, for example. Having a PhD. So that's why you see sometimes people are going from master to master if they know they want to go to the industry. Because the practicum you go to do in the industry of 3 weeks here, 2 weeks there, even sometimes count more for you than when you come with a thesis that you did a PhD. So one needs to know what one is looking for. One have to be careful and know what one is looking for. Otherwise, going to a second PhD after a PhD, even sometimes if somebody perceives it's just as a way of marking time, a professor finds that clue out, it might be the reason why they'll put you at arm's length. Because the drive in you may not be sufficient to get something tangible out. Somebody has been saying something about curiosity. PhD, it's like you have internally, you have the drive and you are eager to the next result. You are going around and you are pressing and I want to see how it will turn out. That thing is so important to some people. That's the same reason why we say sometimes the first class material from a place might not be a PhD material, might not be a research material. Because anybody who is doing a PhD, who is coming into a PhD must have sufficient interest internally. There is something I want to please move back to talk about that, I was waiting for an opportunity. That is this idea of searching for professors. it is important that, somebody mentioned it and it builds on that. Search. Go to Google, search. But have in mind already a topic, an area, or let me say, place where you can tread easily without too much of being twisted. Where the competence you've built already is already going to like 50% or 40% at least, something like that, that you can come in and then build on. We see a lot of people applying to places that they have no clue enough to step into the lab and operate facilities and interpret data and analyze. You understand? So if I'm going to, based on the little experience I have, what I usually do is it's been said already, study the recent work being published in that place. Not 20 years ago that they've forgotten about and they're no more interested in. But something currently, the 2020, 2019 articles from whoever is heading that group or people working around him in the same lab, and I can understand it, I can flow with it, I can design something around it, I can try and create a perspective that is not already overflowed with them. If I'm allowed, I'll give my experience in China because that's where my brain started waking up from. And that's how, that's the truth. We are in Nigeria, we go to the library, we see big journals, inorganic chemistry, actor, spectrochemistry, actor, this and that, and then we didn't really recognize that the name, the date written on them is 1976, 1982. So we read all the things we can read in those places, did masters, did maybe BSc, and many times people are coming up with very obsolete stories. So my professor in China, in Beijing, will come into the lab with his cup of coffee and say, Kenny, you're very hardworking, I like that, but you're doing routine chemistry. My name will not be on such publication. So I go back to my room every day and then I had to take my stipend, my funding, go to bookshop to buy Vogel organic, Vogel inorganic, all the books I need to be able to bring myself up, And then I was somehow just lucky. I don't know how to, it has to do with Christian faith now, revelation, molecule sin and things like that, but this is a seminar. And then by the time I was completing this program, even the paper I published when I was back in Nigeria, and I didn't put the man's name because I felt it's not his core area. I threatened to write to the editor, But what one is trying to really bring out is China took you up because they wanted somebody who can do English. That's what I understood later. Two guys have been in the same group from Nigeria, and for 1 year program, after 8 months, they call one other Chinese guy to say, bring some of those your ligands you used to prepare those kind of complexes for those kind of studies. Let us now prepare another kind of set of complexes, and then they do something right up for him, and more like without his input, and then they put his name in the first so that TWAS can be happy, so that Chinese Academy of Sciences can be happy that the guy came to his lab and succeeded in something. So try to check what the person is doing for European environment and be sure you can flow with it. Be sure that you have like certain level of at least knowledge, and then you can begin to pick up the rest, because it's important for getting the attention of the people here. Someone said writing the same five things to 5 different professors, there's nothing as crazy as it, because by the time they read in between the line, they just realize that you're wasting their time and they push it aside. So I just wanted to chip that in. Multiple PhD or just getting PhD as a way of marking time is not good. It's also not even good for the person that is stepping into such a thing. Of course, we must be honest with ourselves. A lot of Germans are also hanging around in academic institutions just for that kind of purpose. I don't know if you have that experience, but I see people here that that their motivation is not there. That 50% is just okay for them to knock around and yeah.
Okay. So one last question from this one. Somebody asked, would you advise me to leave Germany to another country for a PhD? So probably Kenny, you did a PhD in France, or Dr. Sela, or anybody that has an experience in this. So comparing a PhD in Germany and PhD in probably another European country or somewhere else, USA, UK. So what would you say about this?
The first thing that I would say here is that for me, I have three criteria, and most times this comes later. So not to make the people in the audience feel that I had all of this figured out and I knew exactly what I wanted to do. That's not the case. But for me, there are 3 points that I want here, and countries is not one of them. The first is the professor, the supervisor. If I have a good supervisor in China, in Poland, anywhere, I want to go there, right? Then the second one, because a good supervisor, this is one of the most important criteria in any PhD research. Your supervisor can make you or mar you very easily. And you could be doing a PhD in Harvard, in Yale, in wherever, but if you don't have a supportive supervisor, supportive doesn't mean they hold you by hand to do your research, no. But supportive means really being there to listen to you, your own opinion, and giving you that encouragement to go through the whole PhD process, then you have a big problem. The second is the thesis, the topic, okay? I used to tell people that, to be sincere, when I applied for the PhD funding that I got, I didn't even know that KIT existed as a university, despite the fact that it's one of the best universities in Germany. I didn't know. For me, I didn't care much about the name of the university. I was just interested in the topic. And I didn't even know the professor in Germany, that he's one of the best in that field, if not the best. But because I was just interested more with the one I had in France. I knew this guy in France. I'd worked a bit with him. I was comfortable with him. I wanted to do a PhD with him. So the second, the third, then is the university. So I have it in this order. Now, the first one is that, of course, if you have a good supervisor, you could run into the challenge that perhaps if the lab is not well equipped, they do not have all the facilities, it could make your work more difficult. But you in a bit more comfortable position than someone. So you might write a publication and you just get even more and more frustrated. And I've seen people that have gone through this, even being in the best university. So why I'm giving this criteria is because it doesn't really matter if you're doing a PhD in Poland, or if I did my PhD, my research in Poland on this topic that I did and got the kind of results that I got, it would still be interesting for any person that wants someone in that field. So you need to think about it like more of, I am going to do this PhD. I am the outcome of the PhD. This is something that most times we forget. The outcome of the PhD is not the thesis, it's you. The person that will be employed, whether you are going to postdoc or to the industry, is not your thesis. You don't just show a thesis like, I have a PhD, take me. No. There are the skills, transferable skills from your PhD that you would need to transition to an industry, that you would even need to transition to a postdoc. Because again, don't forget that applying for a postdoc is another application on its own, and you have to differentiate yourself because there are many PhDs that want to apply for postdoc positions. So you now see this all comes down to what you make out from your PhD. So if your PhD is in Poland or anywhere, wherever the country it is, but you have the good support and you make something out of your PhD, something outstanding, you can be able to stand and compete with people from any universities. So I knew that after my PhD, I could put the PhD with any PhD from any university and it would stand out. So, but at the beginning, somebody might say, but I don't even know that this university exists. That's not the point. People are not going to search you based on that university. They are going to search you based on the work that you have done. So for some people, it might feel like, okay, but you might be in a country or in a lab that don't have facilities. Okay, and this is where it's important to think extensively about collaborations. Okay, so as much as possible, wherever you are doing your PhD, don't allow yourself to be limited by the limitations of your lab, of even your research expertise of your professor. consider it as your baby, because actually PhD is your baby. Consider that you are going to be the outcome of this PhD, that whether you did it in Harvard or you did it in a university in Poland or you did it in Manchester or Yale, anywhere, at the end of the day, people are going to search based on the work that you brought out. And this should be your focus. And these 3 items that I've listed are the criteria that I'm going to consider before I check the next. So is it a good supervisor that I can work with? 1, tick. Secondly, is it a topic that I'm passionate about? Because I can be passionate about a topic and the supervisor makes it more difficult for me to even work with. Then third, I look at the university or the country. So this, at least from my own point of view, these are the ways that I'll rank it.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Kenny. Somebody asked a question on, in the chat. So
I think Escuela wants to add something there.
Okay. I mean, the next question is directly to him anyways. So I'll just read it out so he talk about both this one and what he has to say. So how do we get professors to respond to postdoc requests? So that's a question from someone in the chat. So
Okay.
Dr. Escuela.
Yeah. Thank you. First, I want to touch on what Dr. Kelechi said. That's based on some recent examples in the institute where I'm working, which is not so pleasant. Some guys have been coming and going, and like you say, collaboration, for example, you know, it's something one should really actually tread softly with. They come in, they need XYZ instruments or facilities, and then they have maybe just 70% of them in-house, and the rest, they have to go outside. So, twisty and funny, especially if you are coming for, let's say, just a year and a half, and not like 3 full years of PhD or something. Then you begin to do bureaucratic meeting one professor, setting up the meetings. And so, cut the long story short, some of these people have come, done projects, and gone back without really actually completing, just because for you in chemistry, you might understand, maybe others will not understand surface characterization, SEM and TEM and stuff like that. The lab that these colleagues of mine who came in wanted to measure some of their samples in, they said, you know, this clean room talk, this lab where they don't allow a piece of air to fall on the ground. They said, sorry, if we handle this sample, we need a lot more to invest to recalibrate our instrument. So long story short, all experiments done, 80% completed, but they're not fully completed. So I would rather, it's also like a strategy I've always tried to make, to check if in-house some of the main facilities I need are available. It's also somehow, you know, should I do my PhD in Germany? Should I not? I would, you know, with all, and say, this environment, even the smallest of institutes is likely to have very key things. Finances are available here, you understand, but there are some neighboring European systems. France is not part of them. If you go to Poland, you might struggle with it and stuff like that. So somebody needs to also think about the chances that I'm starting something and not being able to complete. Yes, collaboration is important, but it's not every time that you snap the finger and you get the collaboration done. Based on experience, based on what we've seen, it's good, it's rather better to, you know, actually what in the topic of searching for a professor, one of the things I had wanted to touch on is that many people who are searching are very lazy. They want to call Dr. Kelechi and get him to just give them a magic wand, and or call, you know, somebody, and they will not search. They will not take details into account. I should be able to know what I have built in me and what I hope I can do. I should be willing to write my project to suit what the person on that other end is doing. But then I should also check what is really the environment like. We have laboratories where the professor is just more or less more of teaching professor, less of academic, hardly comes to the lab, maybe some more busy with academic, with some of these administrative things, for example. If you don't pick those things and watch them, you might step into very, very hot soup. Like what Dr. Kelechi said, is the professor supportive or not? If you're a bug on him, you come up to him to talk, and it's like you go and see the other postdoc. In this year now, there's one of the strongest known professor in this place, but imagine a place where they have 60 PhD students. It doesn't have your time. And that's one of the problems of that group. 60 PhD students. I don't know how many masters, but you don't have one-on-one. You have to take up postdocs to be able to fill the gap, the vacuum he is creating with administrative. He's even competing for Oberburgermeister or something in the year or something like that, so you can have an idea. So it's good to tread carefully. It's not meant to create fear, but people should be serious and check. And if they have to now ask colleagues that they know in some of these environments for more information about what they are seeing, what is their fear, it makes life easier. Get a place that is better to have a place where most of the facilities are available. For postdoc, you know, I started with applying for Maria Curie with Humboldt, and the Maria Curie failed. I have to be honest, there's no shame in this. It failed and they wrote me back. Of course, these things are highly competitive. So when Dr. Kelechi mentioned, I said, wow, you need to what you must have something behind you. Excellence is one of the key things for certain funding. Yes, there is postdoc by several other funding sources. So, but in general, there are those that are your how will I put it now? Your application, your person matters strongly in it. There are those that, like has been mentioned, Professor X has a collaboration with Industry Y, and they are working on topic Z, and they look at you and your experience, you know how to operate this instrument, you can toe the line, so they give you a blueprint, and they don't even want so much of your opinion sometimes, In that case, they are paying you direct, and that's also one of the ways. But a person who is applying should be able to look at the environment he is applying to know which one is applied, and also the flexibility of changing from one variant to another. I am applying to the Humboldt. I want to get funding for XY number of years, but my host is saying, well, it's taking too long. I have so amount of funding. It can take you through 5 years, 4 years or something. Can you work with me? If you study the environment, then it makes life also easier. The professors, there is an aspect that many times we don't actually recognize. Sometimes they don't want to affect what you are asking for. You came to them, you said, I want this. Some of them have the other variants, but if you don't ask for it, they will not bring it out. They don't want. For example, now, it was my professor here in Ghana that educated me and said, okay, also some people in international office in the university, it is more prestigious for you that you are taking the funding that you applied for, that is your grant. You can list it, but the one that your professor applied for, you can't list, So that made me to tilt towards that direction. But if I have another option from my professor, I've learned to always write at the bottom of my application. This is a kind of like an advice to people asking the questions. I welcome your suggestions, and maybe I'm flexible to your thinking. You try and put in those things to let the people know. And that a lady who worked with me, who just returned to Tunisia, I think about 6-7 months ago, brought a proposal. I want to do X, Y, Z. And the professor, when my professor in Vienna here, went into his office because we were passing behind her on the chair where she sits. We see what she's doing with phenanthroline, with bipyridine, some of these. I mean, the area where I'm working in is more like trying to always design new organic ligands. So we don't really want to work with off-the-shelf material that we can just go and buy. So we pass behind her. We see her often having this thing on her. She's the chemdral structure she's doing, and we felt she needed. So I went to the professor to discuss. Said, we saw all these things, we knew these problems, but we try not to. It's just like this data protection rights thing also that is common in this Europe that they're talking about. They don't want to twist what she's doing. They don't want to end up getting into trouble with one professor back in Africa or something. So they said, we know what she's coming to do. It's not really, we're not hoping for any publication from it or whatever. We're not going to be proud that our name is going on such thing, but we felt, let's just help her. She seems like she can hit the ground and run and do her thing by herself. Then I now started pleading with the professor to say, let me talk with her if she's willing. We have several project designs that we are yet to start. Some of them are about starting materials for and everything. And I said, okay, so that she doesn't end up spending the little short stay. You have 3 months to stay, 2 weeks, you're still searching for literature because you suddenly realize that you don't have enough information what to do. So the same thing applies just like a principle across board. In postdoc also, when people are applying, their person is one of the strongest criteria, especially at the postdoc level. Your person, because they're already giving 3 masters to a PhD student. So what do you expect as a postdoc? You will be having to deal with PhDs. So it's really important. And for funding for postdoc, my general advice would be that people should not just have their eye too much fixed on big money. Mm-hmm. You know, just like it has been mentioned today, if you do masters and do it well, for example, you begin already a rapport, you begin already to show the brilliance in your head. So there are people who come in on this kind of funding and within the time it is upgraded to something else. So people should learn to have that, you know, wishes, if wishes were horses, men will ride or something, there's a saying like that. But not every time one can get his wish. So write in a way, apply in a way that you don't even make the money. Your excellence, your presence, that was your experience, what you want to do. And at postdoc level, one shouldn't be writing. You see some proposals that are experiments you can conduct within 3 months, 6 months. And somebody's asking for 1.5 years or something, or 2 years. You know, it's better to always write something much heavier. I used to see proposal as meaning, like they say lizard, when they land on the ground, if nobody greet me, I greet myself. You know, you write like, I can jump from the top of this 10-story building and nothing will happen. That's actually, of course, not that it should be exaggerated, impossible things. But it's better to have a compact and demonstrate that, look, I'm ready. I want to work. Sincerely, for us as Africans, that's my perception. That's one of the things that stands us out. Mm-hmm. While they are drinking coffee, going to break room, spending all the day in talking, and going back at 3 o'clock or something, you have, in my institute, every time I come into the lab environment at maybe 7, 8, 9 in the night, and I see any light on, it's either the person is from Iran or from China or from Africa. You know, so that's one of the things that we have going for us. And all the people that have gone through the landscape, as it has somehow opened the way for potential applicants, so that people should stop having too much of fear. Build your own excellence. Make sure that you are not presenting yourself for a work like a lazy person, like somebody who doesn't have so much of strength to do something aggressive, and that curiosity, I think I leave it at that.
Thank you so much, Dr. Abiodun. Somebody asked, I mean, we are all speakers are all scientists. Somebody asked, what about the social sciences and humanities? Because it seems like it's just, you know, natural sciences that's taking all the PhD positions. So what about that part? What would you say, Christian?
Yeah, actually, before I answer the question, there was something I wanted you as a moderator. When you raise one topic, try to hear the opinion of the 3 speakers. Okay. So that, yeah, probably within 1 minute or 2 minutes, so that the people listening will be able to actually see different views, yeah, of a particular, because I might be saying only the head of an elephant, and my colleague might be seeing from the tail of an elephant or from the tail, as the case may be. So if you do it in a more fashioned way, hey, what's your opinion on this topic? Okay. Like 1-2 minutes, everybody will be acquainted with the kind of information there.
Okay.
Let me quickly answer this question in as much as my answer to this question will be with respect to the colleague I've networked with. So usually, PhD, why it appears like it is science-based, is because we'll go to the lab and we make fantastic decisions. Most time, the professor wants you to make decisions. So at that point, we have a kind of more open PhDs for science students than for non-science. Because for non-science, my understanding is that some of them do their normal work and come to write PhD thesis. Like some of them are employed in many companies. Like a colleague I was working with, he said he's doing PhD in University of Hamburg. I said, you are doing PhD in Hamburg? He said, yes, I'm writing my thesis there in psychology. But he is working in a different company altogether. So I was like, well, it's my first experience of, because we try to say, I am doing PhD here and I am working there. But in social science, like someone in psychology was actually working in another company, but doing PhD in some of those stuffs like that. So this is actually the little information I could give you. I will allow other speakers to also say something.
All right. Dr. Keddy, do you have anything to add to the question?
What I can add is that depending on, so if someone was doing, I imagine that if someone was doing a master's in that field, right? So if you're doing a master's in that field, who are your professors? What research are they doing, right? At the end of the day, it's always a matter of funding and also who is interested in that kind of area that is going to fund their research. So if I were to be in that field, say if I were to be in social sciences, I would be looking more like if I'm in the same group, I'll be looking at what my professors are doing and I would approach them to know if there are funding. So I don't want to really comment in details because it's something I'm not very familiar with. But I do know that as an example, I've seen a lot of fundings. Most times that also covers social sciences a lot. Like the Marie Curie, what they call IF, so individual fellowship has, I mean, remember, it's individual fellowship. So you come with your own proposal. So if you are in social sciences, you can also bring your own proposal. And also, like the Swiss Excellence and Fellowship covers a lot on social sciences. Like they have funding on social sciences, but you still need to bring your own proposal. So at the end of the day, we need to really understand that on one hand, what is more visible, like you can feel that, okay, there are just scientists here. It looks like these are the only areas that they are funding is because this is where we are. But it doesn't necessarily mean that if you were to look for an audience of social scientists doing their PhD, you wouldn't find. And perhaps they would already give you a lot of other openings that we are probably just in the wrong kind of audience. So there's also that possibilities.
Okay, thank you so much for the answer. I hope it has answered that question. And then I have two questions. Somebody asked if my master's is in a private university here in Germany, where I cannot do PhD in the same school. How can I go about this? And also somebody also said that, how about people studying in the Hochschule? I think PhD can't also be done in the Hochschule here in Germany. So I don't know, do you know how we could go about this? I mean, this question is to everybody. So maybe Dr. Kenny or Christian, anybody that has an idea could take this.
Okay, I will just chip in one thing. This is actually, we are Nigerians first, then some of us live in Nigeria and in Germany. You need to be smart. You need to be smart. You have an idea of doing PhD, and you had what we said here, how to showcase yourself. You also had that in Germany, you have freedom to do your master's thesis anywhere. Come on, I've answered the question. Next person.
Okay, now we are getting into executing your PhD. So, what steps would you take during your PhD? So, you don't actually do a PhD forever. or you don't actually lose focus. Like some people, I have heard about situations whereby some people get bored and then leave the PhD and then go to another field. And then I've had situations whereby people do PhD for 5 years. So what advice do you actually give to this set of people?
I would say that first of all, so just a bit of one point with the previous question, like Hochschule in Germany, it's the system in Germany. You have two different systems, not exactly what we have in Nigeria with the degree and the polytechnic, but Hochschule is more technical. So what they get out in terms of their grades needs to be kind of converted into what you would need as minimum to go to PhD. Now, if a professor is looking at, even for someone that did a master's, some professors will tell you typically you need to stay below 2.5, like rating in Germany. And in Hochschule, this needs to be converted into that right format. So typically, it's not always going to be straightforward if the professor just wants someone just looking at the certificate. But just like what Christian mentioned, depending on how you align yourself. So if you are in Hochschule now and you are thinking of doing a PhD, perhaps you might already start thinking of trying to do some things like internship in laboratories. So you are trying to align yourself out into the position of doing an actual PhD. You could come from an Hochschule, but you do your internship, like your master's internship, in a university, a standard university lab. And of course, this would also mean finding the professors and that have projects that you can do. But then you already come into the field where you have that opportunity to like demonstrate your skills. So this is one way to overcome that obvious or seemingly obstacle when you move from a Hochschule. Now, when it comes down to how do you manage your PhD that you do not spend all the time, to be very sincere with you, I've told someone before that a PhD is not an extended master's, okay? And it's not just being because I want to say it for the sake of saying it. The reason is because you are moving in a field that is not known. You have a supervisor that is guiding you, but you are going to be the expert of your field. So the first thing that you want to very clearly define is what would success look like, okay? Really, as much as you can, as early as you can, be clear and align with your supervisor. What would your success look like? Because a PhD typically is not something you say, I finished my PhD. I don't know what that means. I remember my professor telling me in my third year that, with this, your other ideas, we could actually give you more funding and we are happy to keep you here for more years. So you see, you could easily also get carried away with the research you are doing that you even don't want to go out, right? Because it's interesting, it's exciting. But you need to define with your supervisors at the beginning, how would this success look like? When will I finish this PhD? What will it mean? What do I need to take care of? And also easily communicate. I think one of the very important things that I learned is not to keep things to yourself. Remember, your PhD is a relationship between you, your supervisor, and your thesis. And you are the manager, you're the project manager. You manage these three interactions. You manage yourself, you manage your supervisor, and you manage your thesis. So you need to make sure that there is a clear communication between these three entities, including yourself. Why I say this is because I've seen scenarios where people in the third year of their PhD, that is when they actually realize, or their professor is now telling them that I don't think you have done enough work, right? But you might also feel like it's not about spending all the times in the lab. There needs to be something that is measurable towards the direction that they want you to be. So make sure, as a first advice, you communicate as much as possible. I was fortunate to be in a group where we had to present our work every 2 weeks. Whatever you are doing in the lab, every 2 weeks, you have a chance to tell what is happening, what are your challenges, how does this fit into the whole picture. Secondly, when you communicate frequently, if you are in a lab that doesn't have this setup, make sure you set up either monthly or every 2 months, a review with your supervisor. Put together everything that you have done, review with him, and also direct where it is going. Like you have your PhD thesis and objective, always make sure that it is clear to everyone. Because at the end of the day, if you were to go through 3 years and your funding has ended, and your supervisor cannot really feel that you have done enough work to justify him or her to extend a funding for you, then you have a big problem. And that's why you might see some people that like they spend 5 years, but there is no funding actually for them to continue, and they are trying to just manage to round up everything. So make sure you clearly communicate. If you have failures, people say failures. No, failure in PhD or failure in research is actually what did not work. And this is something you need to communicate. So don't feel shy that, okay, if I go to him, he would think this was stupid. What did I do? No, it's better for him to know that something is not going according to what we thought. And you don't just come to him and say, this is not working. Come and say, this is not working. See what I think we should try and see what I think we can do. And this is why I think it's not working. So because at the end of the day, you are going to have a thesis, and the thesis is a summary of everything that you have done. So to avoid overspending the time in your PhD, you need to always communicate and align expectations. Very important.
Okay. Kristen, do you also?
Yeah, you know, my words is always very simple and short, usually. See PhD, like he just said, PhD is your work. It's nobody's work. In fact, at a point, there was something he said, you tell the supervisor will do that. It depends on the supervisor you have. I don't tell my supervisor, this is what I want to do. Because he's not interested about what you want to do. He is interested in your results. Tell him that this is the results and this is what I did. He's always happy. But I want to do this, I want to do this. Because most of what you have to do as a PhD, I think is in your institute. You have access to that. For instance, any chemical I have, I ordered my chemicals. Whatever I want to do, I order it. So I needed a kind of a further training in the Dresden. I wrote to the professor, hey, there's a training going on here. I need to go. It will cost me 1,200 euro. I sent him a copy, sent to the secretary. He approved it. I went for the training. I came back. Because he knew that you are building yourself. Mm-hmm. This project is your project. The first thing I have to really say, which could be if you're starting PhD, once your professor said, hey, my name is, he called his first name. He actually brought himself for you to talk to him like your peer. We have very big problem. I think I also had a problem when I first came. I started calling them professor this, professor that. Shit, professor this, professor that. You put a kind of hierarchy that will not allow you to drive. The PhD does not belong to the professor. It belongs to you. And if you know that this is your own work, and it is expected at the end of your PhD to be more informed in that field than your professor. So which simply means, and that's why people always run away, because if like, it seems as if Kelechi had a very good professor who listened. Some professors don't listen, they want results. And if you want results from me, why am I telling you about my crap? I present the result for you. And when you present the results, and you give an idea, I also ask anybody who wants to do PhD in Germany to do a course, which I did. It is called Intercultural Communication. How do you communicate with your supervisor? When you send your supervisor the first mail and he didn't respond, what is the meaning? Do you understand now? When you ask your supervisor and he didn't respond, what is the meaning? Then the second thing is, in the PhD where you are managing, that doesn't mean that you don't discuss with your professor. Some professors don't have time to discuss with you. Dr. Abiodun said some professors, they had about 60, 70 PhDs. So where will he find the time? It's only when you come to the presentation, you try to tell them, this is what happened in the lab. This is my challenge. This is what I did. They said, yeah, that's why I employed you. Take decision. So in that aspect, I will stop here. Someone else should say something.
Dr. Abiodun, do you have anything to add to that?
What I see, you mentioned a lot of excellent contributions. When a foundation is not well led, it paves way for some of this kind of rubbish. people getting bored by themselves, even in the middle of their project, people starting on the wrong foot. But what I would advise, for example, for if there's anybody who is into PhD and you have gone through the first year and you're already bored, if there is possibility for a way out and to redesign yourself, because it pains me to start. Can be a torture if you and you have no results. Can be a torture if can you hear me?
Yeah, but the network isn't stable. The network is not stable.
I hope it's not because my mic was trying to run to the back.
No, it's actually a network problem. Okay. Fair enough.
Okay. So it will be good for anyone who has not yet started not to start with something that he doesn't have enough interest and aggressiveness internally to push through. Like what Dr. Christian is really pointing out, if you know what you are doing and you are enjoying it, it will be like coming to a ball in the evening to dance. You will just come anytime and roll out information. There are some people, I'm sure someone like Dr. Kelechi, anytime they're having group seminar, you know, I can imagine that if they have allotted 1 hour for him, they will have to be begging him, please, just go, don't, you understand, round up, because you have bombshell of information to be chunking out information, you understand? And from little experience, I can see most times people who have this problem, either they entered into the whole thing with the wrong reasons altogether. They entered into it with, my major interest is, okay, I want to stay in Germany, but then you must recognize you are going to wake up every day to go and do something. And you must have sufficient interest to support that going and coming. If anybody is into it and it is not already so bad that it is on the 3rd year, 6 months, 1 year, and I'm seeing, I mean, in a place like US, it's even the group, the professor also that will stop you, because I think it's one reason I've never applied for anything in the US. They are so aggressive with, if they are funding you, they are looking over your shoulder every time. Many people start PhD in 6 months, they tell them the light we are seeing doesn't show, like, it doesn't seem like we're going to come to a good end. So they stop your fellowship. We have good number of examples. But in a system like this, they are so flexible, and it depends on you who is working. It depends on you and your drive. It depends on your hunger for these things. And if I discover that within a year, I can see that I'm not really enjoying the environment, or the result is not, I would rather find a way to beat a retreat and really relay the foundation than to stay on a project. I mean, as a scientist, to stay on a project and be going and coming every day without motivation, I think one can as well take a rope and hang himself, honestly.
No hanging.
No, I'm sorry, I'm that
just
extreme.
Kidding.
I'm sorry. Please, nobody should commit suicide. But what I'm trying to say is that it's killing. It's killing to be working and not get any meaningful joy in it yourself personally. Result is one thing. Satisfaction as a person, as a scientist, is another thing.
Thank you, Dr. Abiodun. I would like to say that some links to PhD fundings were posted on the charts. So you can actually go through the charts if you're interested in links to PhD fundings. And somebody asked if people are asking if they could get the contacts of the speakers. So, I mean, in Germany, we have to ask before we give out contacts. So I would want to know.
So it's fine. So you can share my LinkedIn profile. I think it's easier to communicate with people through this outlet.
Okay. So for Dr. Kenny, you can actually go to LinkedIn. I think Kenechukwu Onwukamike, just the name will do.
I can share that myself, but okay, for the others, they can choose.
Okay, Dr. Abiodun, and then
I have no problem. I have no reason.
Okay. All right, then I could just share his contact with you later on. Or we send it as part of the packages we are sending. I mean, we are sending out some documents at the end of the summit where it contains everything that was shared today. So I think that's going to be part of it too. I have one last question concerning, okay, Kristen, you're mute. Could you please unmute? Kristen, you're mute. Oh.
We can't hear you.
So you can try.
Okay.
Yeah.
I muted myself because something came up. So when I tried to unmute, they said I have to get a permission from you.
Yeah, actually.
There is one thing. I try to let Nigerians to start being smarter than what we are today. I don't give people my address. I give you my name. You know what to do. So it's, I don't know. Let's continue. My name is Christian Ikechukwueze. If I don't exist, that means I'm not a researcher. Do a little homework. I don't give my email. You can get it. So, Tom, I hope I answered the question of what they want to.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, before the summit, I actually went, searched for your name once again to just make sure my work was done. And then I got about 2 emails. I mean, with the first 2 results on Google. So that's like actually.
It's very simple. The reason why I give the information here is not only learning. I want our own scholars to start thinking from different perspectives. You see, this idea of multinational thought, we should always bring it. You must not be super intelligent to do PhD. All you need to do is to be super smart. That's all. You must not be super intelligent. In fact, PhD is not measured by the number of A's you have. If you're not smart with A's, that is what we normally and usually do. Anyways, I hope where we cram everything, it should go beyond that at this stage. So we should be more smart. Let our fingers, if it's working, do most of the job for us. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So one last question before we conclude. Transition from PhD or postdoc into a career. So I know Dr. Kenny transitioned from a PhD into a research assistant. Am I correct? A research scientist, sorry, at Procter & Gamble. So I would want to ask you, you first, how did you do it? And at one point, because like Dr. Abiodun said, that the higher you go on the career ladder, the more, the narrower your options get, options in terms of jobs. So I want to know, how did you transition from a PhD into the industry?
So it was a bit intentional, I would say. So when I started my PhD, research at heart. I'm passionate about research. So when I was starting my PhD, I didn't see the chance of going to the industry. I think this was also due to not being very clear how I can be free in terms of wanting to do research in the industry. And when I finished my PhD, this changed a bit because I've always been a big fan of innovation. I'm still a big fan of innovation. I'm very passionate about taking research to market. That is innovation. If I want to solve a problem, I identify a problem. I go through research to find a solution. It's not a solution until it solves that problem, until it gets to the market, until it gets to people. And so when I was finishing my PhD and making all these bio-based plastics, the question now was, what next? What happens? Does this just stay in the lab? How would people be able to see that this is existing? And so moving to the industry then was like a route where I could do and work on something on shelf. I can do research now and see it on the shelf. If I implement a solution, I can walk to the shelf tomorrow and see people buying it. And that was actually one of the big push. I got a postdoc actually before the end of my PhD, but just that aspect that I don't want to spend the next 5 years of my life doing research, basic research, without really touching it, seeing it on the shelf. This was definitely not something I wanted to continue to do. And of course, I really respect those that are still passionate about basic research and still keep pushing that frontier. I think we need both, right? Both from the side of staying in research and the academia and doing research in the industry.
Thank you so much. I would also want to invite Christian because I know his story. He came in as a PhD student and transitioned into a research associate, and then so I want to know how do you get yourself? How do you stay active, like career-wise? How do you keep moving and so you don't just get stuck in doing a PhD?
I think all I said is that always be smart. Always be smart. There are rules, because this is being recorded. So there are things sometimes I don't want to really put out like that. But you could be better than what you are. You could always be smarter. Remember, I gave an information. On the 1st of March, 2020, a new law saying if you are a graduate of third world country, then you have possibility of having a visa to look for a job. You have the possibility of, if you get a job, you change your stay. There are lots of them. It's all about smartness. Having said this, I will also say this to the scholars. I am not anti-Blacks, but I always want people to be much more smarter than you've ever expected to be. In the sense that here, I think Dr. Biodun has said something. I came here, I know what I want. From the very first day my leg is in Dutchland, I have focus on what I want. As a matter of fact, which might surprise most of us here, they knew me. Even in staff Hines. So if you are surprised that I'm a PhD and I've once worked in staff Hines, it simply means that I have focused on what I want. While I was working in staff Hines, I told some of them in staff Hines, well, this staff Hines, I just wanted to see this kind of level of experience that by January, I am going into a transition. I made that because I actually made my way out. How do you make your way out for people that actually want such a kind of transition? It is always very simple. You must be enthusiastic. In fact, you must be goal-oriented. You must have this kind of drive. Some friends, I always call them, this drive is like, it's not like perfect drive. Abiodun has actually summarized it when he said, when you go to the institute, I am not here because I want to remain in Dutchland. I am here because there's something I want to get and I have focus. The same thing is applicable in DAISY. As of 9 o'clock p.m. when I want to leave office, I only live with people from Bangladesh, from India, people that came because they knew what they want. So that is actually the simple and the smartest way. And once you do this, who is actually looking at you is your supervisor. And who actually has that power of the transition at that moment where you are working on is still your supervisor. Who wants to know what you are there for? Because when I got the job, I think I would have ordinarily remained with student visa. But I got something that said, no, you are no longer a student. Change everything about you. So that's the summary for now. Thank you.
Okay, and finally, Dr. Abiodun, would you like to add anything? Because we are running out of time now. So we'll just take a last contribution from you.
The principal thing I would like to chip in is that many of us don't recognize that actually age is a factor in some of these things. So transition to work, it's one of the things that beats back quite hard on me, which I'm not really enjoying. So if someone is, rather than continuing on in the academic and burning more years and postdoc and so on, and then coming to an age where the human resources in the industry begins to mark you low and they're searching for younger, and then it's good to also be careful, to think carefully about it. Part of being smart that Dr. Christian is pointing out, one should learn to really study the terrain, and it's not usually good to stay unnecessarily too long. I'm happy that Dr. Kelich also said it. You have a postdoc, but you chose to go to the industry. I bet you if you had stayed longer on postdoc for 5 years, it might affect your entry into the industry.
Correct.
This is where you can apply what you're doing. You know, in my own case, I had all my degrees in UI, but then one had the chance to be in China to do the experiment, been coming to Vienna from 2010, short stays before the postdoc. But summary of the whole of the thing is the longer you spend, the more the years have advanced, the lesser you are likely to be even getting invitation for interview. That's the truth. It has to be mentioned so that people, I have currently some people who are coming, who are wishing to leave UI to come here. From their age, I know the kind of difficulty they'll face. So I already tried to chip that in for them. The age is very important. The younger you are, the better. But if someone has gone to like 40, 45, one should be careful to begin to hope. I mean, just in a nutshell.
Okay. Thank you so much. I think we finally come to the end of this particular talk. So we could actually join the main summit. I posted the link just now where you could actually join the main page through this link. Thank you so much for your participation. Thank you so much, the guest speakers. I really had a nice time. And I look forward to networking and connecting. Have a nice day, everybody.
Thank you for your moderation.
Thank you for the excellent
Have
stuff.
a nice day.
Have a great day.
Welcome.
All right, bye.